Why is Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, defending Sam Bankman-Fried when clearly he's put all his work at risk? Why is the New York Times defending Sam Bankman-Fried? Why are crypto scams still allowed on YouTube in 2022? What is going on? Doesn't it seem like something's weird here? I'm going to share a little bit about my experience with crypto because crypto has a lot to do with where we are today and where the world is headed. I don't want to get too much into the details, but I got introduced to astrology in the year of 2017 by someone who only planted certain things or did certain things on certain days, during certain hours, facing certain directions. And at that point in my life, if it weren't for the fact that this was one of the richest, luckiest, and smartest people I knew at the time, I would have just thought he was crazy. But I was going through some things that allowed me to be open-minded. And so it was the right alignment at the right time for me to meet this guy. His success led me down a rabbit hole of, is this bullshit? Or is this not BS? Or because I was also at the time undergoing a lot of ego death and realizing the world wasn't quite what I thought it was. I had moments like that when I was really young, a lot, and I suppressed those things, and I learned to move on, and a lot of that stuff came rushing back to me in 2017. And because of those realizations, I became completely open now to something that I definitely wouldn't have been able to accept prior to 2017 and the energetic things astrologically that I was going through. Now, I had experience with finance before, right? I was always pretty decent with technical analysis. So that's charting price based on volumes and all these kinds of things. I've done free chart analysis now. At this point, with astrology, I like to see things work in the real world in order to determine whether they're actually useful or something that I can use. Then I found out about human design. I went down that rabbit hole. I got a few readings, but I didn't really understand how to apply any of it. The language is kind of loose. But then it happened again. I met a guy whose approach was completely data-driven. This guy is a physicist, and he really knew his stuff. This guy was explaining to me how the energy of the moment affects our genome and our genetic code at the time of birth, and therefore the people we're attracted to or pull in our lives have different genetic code that is acting like trines and squares and oppositions from my chart to theirs. And he basically gave me the most comprehensive, in-depth reading that I've ever had. And this is when I really started to understand astrology was really just quantum physics. And it was like, oh, okay, now this makes sense to me, right? Now there's a basis of something that I can delve into. There's something mathematical about forces being exerted by planetary bodies in the sky. That makes sense to me. This was also at the time I started to really understand what Bitcoin was. Right? I already knew all the problems with the dollar, but I didn't know that Bitcoin was created to be a solution, right? And so I started to understand and uncover really the truth behind why this stuff was created. And then March 2020 happened. And when I saw the world react the way that it did, especially knowing how bad the astrology looked, a lot of astrologers were warning about 2020, to be fair, right? After that hit, especially in March, I knew that we were entering an era of tyranny and technocracy. If you don't know what a technocracy is, look that up. I knew it was coming, and the best that I could do is let as many like-minded people know that you should probably get your financial affairs in order if you want to maintain any independence after this decade. I got obsessed. I tried everything I could find. I got rid of what didn't work and kept what did, and I tracked my results. Very Virgo, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. My work told me straight up, clear as day, a new crypto bull run is coming. It told a lot of people that in the crypto space, to be fair, right? And as this was happening, I felt the tyranny and the confusion and the hysteria of people out in the world and the corporate world that I was in at the time, and I just couldn't tolerate it anymore because I knew what was coming. I had that awakening moment again in 2020, reminding me of the awakening moments I've had before and the knowledge that came rushing to me during those moments that I wanted to ignore, but I wasn't able to. The truth was too real. Using electional astrology, I timed my resignation with the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction for specific reasons that have to do with my chart. That's a conjunction that only happens once every 12 years. I used that, and I decided to leave the corporate world forever. August was also the time period where I learned from a teacher that maybe you shouldn't be trading when the moon is transiting your 8th house zodiac sign. And when I backtested that, statistically that actually panned out to be pretty good advice. But after that, once PayPal and Venmo announced that they were accepting crypto, which I knew institutions were coming for crypto as an inflation hedge narrative, I knew the money being printed in March from 2020 was going to cause inflation, and we needed a solution. And Bitcoin made sense. And once those institutions, PayPal, Venmo, MicroStrategy, once they announced, I can't tell you. There's a feeling you get when you actually take the chance to do the thing you know deep down you want to do, and you just get completely rewarded with this feeling of knowingness. Like many of you who got into crypto at 2020, pretty much everything I bought went up. Except what was great for me is I was in early, and because of this work, I knew when to get out. I knew April 2021 and December 2021 were the months to look at. I knew crypto was going to go parabolic. It was going to go up until April 2021, and I knew it had room to double top, which basically means come down a little bit and come back near that all-time high point again by December 2021. It was there clear as day in my work, in the astrology and in the technical analysis as well. And the history of Bitcoin's 4-year cycle, if you're familiar with that, also supported that as well. Plus all the money printing. All these factors just layered together. Of course, nothing ever runs smoothly. I'm still human. Humans have emotions, and emotion is a great way to lose money. By the way, FTX, we now know, had a lot to do with the boosting of that crypto run. They actually went bankrupt in April of 2021 and borrowed a lot of money and did a lot more market manipulation to help push that double top back. But if crypto would have had its natural 4-year cycle without Sam and FTX and their fuckery, Bitcoin wouldn't have peaked in April 2021. It would have had room to actually go above 100K by the end of the year. But paper Bitcoin, fake Bitcoin, and manipulation really distorted the price. And so did their market making as well. Anyway, I did my work, I did my due diligence. I literally had it in my calendar to cash out in December of 2021, before Venus retrograde. So you had the November eclipses, you had Venus retrograde mid-December. Get out during that time, it was clear. Then you have eclipses beginning on the world's financial axis in January of Taurus and Scorpio. The financial astrology was so clear. I had a Venus-Pluto conjunction that was favorable in my chart around December 4th. I still remember. My plan was to cash out 80%, but I didn't. I cashed out some. I did a lot better than many, but I didn't follow my rules completely. My rules said cash out 80%, and I didn't do that. I thought some personal transits in my chart in January would give me an extended bump in what we call these alternative coins, right? And this was an experiment on my part. I thought some personal transits in my chart in January would give me an extended alt-season. These are the alternative coins in the cryptocurrency space. I knew I had to dump them. They're not worth keeping, right? I thought I would have an extension of this in January to play with and maybe make some extra money, because that's what we've seen in previous Bitcoin cycles. I knew that didn't align with the technical analysis or with the January eclipses, which were much stronger than the personal transits I had in my chart. So it was in part an experiment at the top of the market, and it would give me useful real-life data, because I actually really do this stuff and I test this stuff. And that work and that research, we saw what happened. The first set of eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, it set the tone for the entire year, for all of 2022, right? Recession, bear market, all year long. That work and that research told me, okay, I missed the top, but we will rally back up. Clearly this is proving itself. It continues to work. It really continues to show itself as valid. So we can trust that and say that we'll rally back up, and I can exit the 80% that I was supposed to do in February. And that's the call I shared with you guys in my January 1st video. because I knew that's what was coming and I knew that I could fully trust that. Now, from 2020, when people thought the markets were dead, all the way to the top, and now this year, I lived that doing financial astrology. I could fully trust this now, no matter how crazy it might sound to some. I have data that I can look at in the form of real numbers with real money, my portfolio, tangible proof that astrology can be used in practical everyday life for real world things and provide real world solutions that help, not just for psychological depth and understanding, which is good. That's important too. But why not be fully well-rounded as a human? Why not have real-world funding towards spiritual sciences or speculative sciences? We do it for the weather. And so, with the data of seeing your portfolio going up, if you have proof that this is real, what good is it to just make money and not share what you know? So I'm sharing my work and my experience, and I really appreciate you becoming as completely fascinated and educated by this financial astrology, because it teaches us about ourselves as well as about nature and each other. So while all that is great and nice and lovely, what does all this investment effort really boil down to? Risk management. What if you did all that work just to have your money stolen by FTX? Or by Voyager, or by Celsius, or by BlockFi, Crypto.com, you name it. I mean, this is where things become really important for you. You can have the signals, you can know where the market's going, but if you get your money stolen from you after doing all that effort, well, what good is it? The risk dynamic in crypto has changed. So has the world, and you need to know this. Globalism is dead. And that is the world that crypto now has to operate in.